Hello WinCraps fans. Let's discuss how to reference the dice in your Auto-bet scripts. I'm going to start by opening an Auto-bet screen here. There are four basic variables you can use in your script to reference the dice. Those are dice total, dice combo, die 1, and die 2. I've set all these equal to some check stacks. Let's go ahead and activate this and see what we get. I'm going to take a look at the check stack screen. Since this is Ted's Auto-bet script, we're looking at Ted's check stacks. We can see that for check stack 1 we have a 10, and indeed on the table I see a 10 has been rolled. The combo is 4.6, I see 4 and a 6. Die 1 is a 4, die 2 is a 6. It's pretty easy, pretty simple. You can use those values anywhere in your script that you want. Now what happens when you want to get a little bit deeper? You want to get into some of the history. You'd like to know how many times a 6 rolled, what's the percentage of 7s, how many rolls did Ted have, how many did Joe have, what's the total rolls on the table. You can get into that by referencing a couple things. One is you can look on the variables list here and you can pick out some of these, such as number of rolls, etc. You can read about them in the help file. And what you can use as a reference and a guide is the roll total screen, which I've already opened up here. The players have been rolling, so it's already got some data to it. And first of all, let's ask ourselves, what defines this data here? It starts with the roll collection. If you click on display, you can see there's 4 roll collections here. 11 basic numbers, 21 distinguishable combinations, 36 unique combinations, and the dice faces. Right now we're looking at the 11 basic numbers. That's 2 through 12. That's what the dealer would call during a roll. The second thing that defines this data is the time period. It could be a hand, could be a session. A third thing would be the player or players or no players. If no players are selected, all the data that's displayed is going to be the rolls that were rolled on the table, regardless of who rolled them. Now, when you want to get down to the cell level and look at individual cells on this data, then you're going to have to add in the column and the row to define a particular cell. So let's try and define, for instance, this cell right here. We're going to try and look at the total number of 7s that were rolled for Ted. How are we going to do that over here in the Auto-bet screen? Well, let's just type it out. It starts with, it's a part of the 11 basic numbers. I'm going to again put these on, or we'll put these on separate lines so they break out easier. It is the current session. The player is Ted. It's in the number of rolls column, and it's in the row marked number 7. Okay, so let's set that equal to check stack 1. We'll reactivate the script and see what it gives us. And in fact, down here I see it's 111, and that's what we were looking for, 111. So first of all, a thing to note about this is you do not have to put these in any particular order. You can move them around. If it sounds better a different way for you, it looks better, whatever your reasons, you can move it around. And I'll reactivate it here just to show you, you're going to come up with the same value. The game can figure out what it is. You just put it in how you like. The second thing you might say to yourself is, geez, do I have to enter all that stuff every time I reference something? Well, no, you don't, but there's some stuff you have to enter, and there's other stuff that goes to default, so let's talk about that. The primary thing, the critical thing that you do have to enter when you want to reference the rolls, that's the name of these columns. Okay, it could be number of rolls, percentage roll, number probable, etc. You have to include that. If you don't, you won't get any roll data out of these tables. Everything else can be ignored, and it will be set to a default value. So if what you're looking for is in fact that default value, then there's no need to repeat it in the script. So let's start with the first thing I entered, 11 basic numbers. If you do not enter 11 basic numbers, the game will default to that if it can figure out, or if it can't figure out anything else. If you've put in anything else like a value here, like we entered the number 7, that is a basic number, and so it would default to 11 basic numbers. If you put in a combination, it would default to 36 unique combinations. In this case, we entered a 7, so it is 11 basic numbers. We don't need to repeat that here. We can just remove it. As a matter of fact, you're probably never going to have to reference a roll collection if you're putting in dice values or combinations. Probably only very rare circumstances where you might have to enter that. So we can get rid of that. We're also looking at the current session. If you don't enter a time period, it's going to default to current session. So there's certainly no need to repeat that. We can remove that. And what we're left now is the number of rolls for Ted for the number 7. So if I reactivate that, we can see once again we're still looking at the number 111. Okay. Now actually I can put these all on one line. They don't have to be spread out like that. Still get 111. Okay, now what if we do not enter, for instance, a row number? Let's take the row number out of here. I'll reactivate that, and it comes up with the number 675. Well, where do you see that? That's indeed down at the bottom. So if you don't give it a row number, it's going to go all the way down and give you the total. So 675. Now what if we don't mention the player? Let's take out Ted. What do you suppose that will give us? Just plain old number of rolls. It comes up with 1,004. Okay, so it doesn't. We don't have a player listed. So if we come over here and deselect Ted, we can see the total number of rolls is 1,004. If we wanted to know the total number of rolls without regard to players, so let's say the number 9, I would just tack on number 9 on the end of that, and that comes up with 109. And that's what we're showing here, 109. All right, let's try something else. Let's look at the percentage of 6s that Ted has rolled. So we would come up here and we could say the percentage rolled for Ted for the number 6. Now, since we're still looking at current session, I don't need to enter anything for that. Let's activate that. Comes up with 14.5185. Here it's 14.52. It rounds it off to the 2 digits here on the roll total screen. So you get more accuracy on the check stacks. Now what if I were to say change this to current hand? Now I would be looking for a 31.25. How am I going to reference that up here? Well, this time I do have to put in current hand because we don't want it to default to current session. Let's reactivate that, and it shows 31.25, just what we're looking for. All right, let's go back to session, and let's go back to number of rolls, and let's say that we want to look at the number of rolls for Ted, and we want to look at add in his number of rolls for, let's see, what's an easy one to put together? Well, I guess we'll just add the number 7. So plus number of rolls Ted for the number 7. Activate that. It comes up with 209, and if we add these together here, we get 209. Okay? So you can add, subtract, do whatever you want, but you just have to reference each separate cell. Now what if I want to add 2 players together? Well, on the roll total screen, it's very easy. You just hold down the control key, click another player, it puts all the data together. Very easy to reference. But can you do that on the Auto-bet screen? Well, yes, you can, but of course you have to reference each player separately. So what we're going to do is let's try and hit this number right here. We want the number of rolls for both Ted and Sid for the number 7. So we're going to come in here and say number of rolls for Ted for the 7 plus number of rolls for Sid for the 7. Activate that. It comes up with 144, and that's in fact our number. Now, what if we want to reference percentages? Let's take this and we'll comment out Sid's part here, and let's change this to percentage rolls for Ted for the 7. Okay, we'll activate that. It comes up with 16.44. And 16, let's see, what do we do here? Oh, I left Sid here. Let's deselect Sid. So Ted is 16.44, and that matches what we're looking for. Now we want to combine Sid. So let me reselect Sid. Now we want to find a number 16.23. So if we came in here and said plus percentage of rolls for Sid for the 7, it's going to give us, drum roll, 32.01. Well, that's not what we're looking for at all. Now, why is that? That's because each player has a different pool of numbers. Each player has probably rolled a different set of numbers, a different quantity, and it has different percentages. And you can't just add those percentages back together. It's going to give you a bogus number. So if in fact that's the kind of data you need, then you're going to have to go all the way back to the math, do the math yourself. You're going to have to say, for example, the number of rolls for Ted for the 7 plus the number of rolls for Sid for the 7. You're going to have to combine those and then divide that by, let me just copy this part and Control V. Now we're going to say divide that by the total rolls of Ted and plus the total rolls of Sid. Reactivate that. And now we can see it's 16.23. I could have multiplied by 100 and got the same thing here, 16.23. Okay, so that, as I said, just to repeat that, you can't add together the percentages if you want to add separate players. You have to do the individual cells of each player and do the math yourself. All right, a couple other things I wanted to mention here. When you reference roll data, you generally cannot put parentheses in between any of these separate items. For instance, I couldn't say number of rolls Ted with parentheses around his name. The game is not going to understand what you're looking at. Ted's Auto-bet script contains an error. Okay. Now, if in fact I was to put something that needs parentheses, such as if I were to say player 2, of course it would accept that. If I put the parentheses and a value, let's say check stack 2 is going to define who's there, that it will accept, because in fact it's looking as player 2 is in fact the name, so it accepts those parentheses. Otherwise, the parentheses generally are going to render this unusable. There is one exception though, and that's with the rolls. And that is if you enter the row right after the column. For instance, we're looking at number of rolls, that's the column. If we'll reference the row right after that within parentheses, let's see, let's give it a, say, check stack 3 here. Then it will accept that, but we have to get rid of the 7. Okay, see, it accepted it just fine. Let me move this around here just to reference. I'll tell you what, let's take the player out because I want this to be very clear to you. What this allows you to do is, for instance, you could use a check stack here, and let's say you wanted to make some kind of a loop and you wanted to go through and you wanted to add up specific rolls at different times. You could increment the value of that check stack and you could come up with a number of rolls for that value, and you could just keep going through your loop, whatever you want to do. If for some reason I didn't put that, let's make an example here. Let's see if let's say check stack 3 was going to equal the number 7, and let's say I wanted to do a little math in here. So I wanted to say the number 7 minus the number 7 minus 2. That's going to be 5. Now it will reference the number of rolls for 5. Let's check it out. Okay, it says 109. Let's come up here. We're going to deselect all the players because we took the player's name out of it. And for the number 5, here it is, number of rolls are 9. Now, if for some reason I were to take these parentheses out, now what's it going to look at? It's in fact going to look at the number of rolls for 7. It's going to come up with that value and then subtract 2. Quite different than what we had with the parentheses. So now it comes up with 163. So number of rolls for 7 is 165 minus 2 gets 163. So I hope that makes sense and helps you a little bit in defining how to reference some of these rolls, some of these figures. So have fun with that. See you later. Bye.